Welcome to Mind Set in Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
All right, so welcome to another deep dive. You know how we do it here. We take a whole stack of your sources, pull out the really interesting stuff, the stuff that's going to make you think differently, and then boom, we deliver it to you. Nice and efficient, no fluff, just pure concentrated knowledge. Right?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Today, we're diving deep into the idea of creating your own reality and building something called wealth consciousness. We'll be focusing on A Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron Gikandi. It's a book that dives into some pretty, I guess you could say, new agey concepts. And yeah, we'll get into all that. But, at the end of the day, what we really want to do is uncover the practical stuff. What are the concrete actions you can take, the principles you can apply to actually make a real difference in your life? That's what we're here to unpack.
Exactly. And Gikandi starts by sharing his own journey. He was really drawn to the idea that we can consciously shape our lives. And so he dove deep into studying visualization, meditation, all those techniques.
Right. And I bet a lot of our listeners are familiar with that stuff. The whole idea of intentional creation is pretty popular, but sometimes it feels like you're doing all the right things, the affirmations, the visualizations, but the results just, I don't know, they just aren't quite matching up. It can be kind of frustrating, right?
Yeah, and Gikandi totally gets that frustration. He didn't just study these ideas in theory. He was actually teaching them, creating programs, giving talks, the whole 9 yards. But he was very honest about the fact that he wasn't fully embodying those teachings in his own life. He knew there were some missing pieces.
So he had the knowledge. He was even guiding others. But something wasn't clicking for him personally. What changed for him? What were those missing pieces he discovered?
Well, the big turning point for him was realizing that he needed to shift from constantly trying to achieve his goals to actually just listening to his intuition. Those inner nudges that we often ignore because they don't seem logical or practical.
That's interesting. We're always told to plan and strategize. But he's saying there's power in surrendering to a certain extent, trusting that inner voice.
Yeah, exactly. And this shift led him to, he calls them inspired conversations. And he came across a book that really gave him the scientific basis for all of this, understanding not just the how, but also the why behind these principles was huge for him.
So what was this scientific revelation? What was the key understanding that changed everything for him?
It was the realization that our thoughts and beliefs aren't just like floating around in our heads. They're actually real forms of energy, and they have a tangible impact on our lives. He realized that even though he was putting in the effort, his deep-seated beliefs about money, like scarcity, not enough, were actually holding him back.
So it wasn't that he was doing the techniques wrong. It was more like he was fighting an internal battle between his conscious goals and his subconscious programming.
Right, and this understanding led him to the idea that we're all constantly creating our reality in every single moment through our thoughts, beliefs, and the energy we put out.
Okay, let's break that down a bit.
Yeah.
How does he explain this whole energy thing in a way that makes sense? How do our thoughts and beliefs actually create something tangible in our lives?
Well, the book itself doesn't get into hard science or peer-reviewed studies, but the basic idea lines up with things you see in quantum physics, where energy and matter are all interconnected and the observer affects the outcome. So the way Gikandi puts it is that our thoughts and beliefs, especially the really deep-seated ones, they create a certain vibration. And that vibration attracts experiences that match that same frequency.
It's like you're sending out a signal, and the universe is sending back experiences that are on the same wavelength. So if you're constantly thinking about lack, you're basically tuning into a lack frequency.
Exactly. Now, another big concept Gikandi explores is the nature of time. He says that time isn't as fixed or absolute as we think it is.
Yeah, that can feel a little, sci-fi for some people.
It can. But he pulls from different sources, quantum physics, spiritual teachings, and even, just a more intuitive understanding of reality to explain this. He points out how we often set arbitrary deadlines for our goals. Like, I want to be a millionaire in a year. Why a year? It's a date we just made up.
Right. And then we stress ourselves out trying to meet these deadlines.
And that stress and pressure, he argues, brings in fear and doubt, which can actually block us from achieving what we want. The source, the universal creative force, isn't bound by our linear time. It could make things happen instantly if we were truly aligned. So maybe our deadlines are holding us back.
It's like the universe isn't running on our schedule. All possibilities already exist right now, and it's our focus that determines what we experience.
Exactly. So instead of focusing on forcing things to happen within a certain time frame, Gikandi emphasizes patience and increasing our certainty. That means having a clear vision of what we want, unshakable focus, and aligning our conscious, subconscious, even what he calls the superconscious mind. Impatience, he says, often comes from a sense of wanting, which can actually delay the things we want.
He even brings in Einstein's perspective on this.
Yeah, he talks about Einstein's idea of relativity, how time is subjective and can feel different depending on our circumstances. And he also mentions Gurdjieff's idea that time is breath, like it's more organic, more connected to our own rhythm.
And then he uses this really interesting analogy to describe the space-time continuum.
Yeah, he describes it as a sheet of paper with all possible events, all possibilities laid out on it, and our consciousness is like a moving eye scanning that sheet. The more focused and expanded our consciousness becomes, like imagine multiple eyes or a larger eye, the more of those possibilities we can perceive.
So if we expand our consciousness, we're not just changing our perception of time, but we're also expanding our capacity to experience a richer reality.
Exactly. And that brings us to his concept of the physical world as an illusion.
Now we're getting into some pretty deep stuff.
Right. Gikandi's saying that the world we see, the physical world, is actually the densest part of our mind, and that life itself is just thoughts expressed. The source, he says, uses our thoughts as instructions for creating our reality.
So our thoughts aren't just passive, they're actively shaping the world around us.
Yeah, and he says we experience our own thoughts directly, so we can figure out which ones are helping us grow and which ones are holding us back.
And what about the whole illusion aspect?
Well, he says that what we see as reality is really a projection of our past experiences. It's designed from various stages of our past, he says. But our present thoughts, those are closer to the real you, the observer, the soul.
So the present moment is a truer reflection of our potential. And our perceived reality is kind of like a delayed playback of our past thinking.
Exactly. And the practical takeaway here is to observe the present moment. What's showing up in your life right now? What are you experiencing? That gives you clues about your past thoughts and beliefs. And then you can use that information to consciously choose what you want to change and how you want to grow.
So it's not about being tricked by an illusion. It's about using it as a tool for self-discovery and growth.
Right. So if we're creating our reality with our thoughts and beliefs, how do we break free from the limiting beliefs we've picked up from, society, the people around us?
Gikandi says we shouldn't blindly follow the crowd. If you want different results, you got to think differently.
Exactly. He talks about always having a new, higher goal, even as you're celebrating your current achievements. But don't get caught up in trying to hold on to what you've already achieved. That worry can actually hold you back.
Okay, so enjoy your wins, but don't let the fear of losing them stop you from going after something even bigger. Keep moving forward.
Right. And he lays out a 7-step process for setting goals.
Our listeners will want to hear this. What are the steps?
Okay, so first, you write down your goals in detail. And the key here is to write them in the present tense, like I am statements. Second, you dig into the reasons why you want each goal. And don't be afraid to get a little dramatic. Really feel the emotion behind those reasons.
So not just, I want more money, but I am experiencing financial abundance. I am easily meeting my needs and desires. I am feeling a deep sense of security and freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Third, create a goals and visualizations journal. This can be a physical notebook or even a digital collection. Gather images, descriptions, anything that represents what you want to manifest. Look at it regularly, ideally twice a day.
The visual element seems really important. It helps make those abstract goals more concrete, more real.
Yeah. And then step 4, builds on that with focused visualization sessions. Spend at least 20 minutes, twice a day, vividly imagining yourself experiencing your goals as if they've already happened. If you meditate, do it during your meditation. That deeper state can amplify the process.
It's not just looking at pictures. It's feeling it, experiencing it in your mind.
Right. Step 5 is about taking action. Do something, anything, right now that moves you closer to your goal.
Okay, so even small steps, but consistent action is key.
Yeah. Step 6 is about declaring your intentions every day. This reinforces your commitment and sends a clear signal to the universe. And finally, step 7 is to enjoy the manifestation of your goals as they come to life. Trust the process.
He puts a lot of emphasis on that journal. It's not just about the pictures, is it?
No, he says it's a place to record your thoughts, insights, experiences, even dreams. It's a tool for self-discovery. He even gives tips for organizing it separate sections, an index, color coding, tabs.
Make it a practical part of your routine, something you actually use and engage with.
Yeah, and review it regularly, at least once a month, and do a big yearly review of all your journals. Look for patterns, new perspectives, areas where you've grown. He even says to record the exact date, time, and location for each entry to help you track those patterns.
It's like a personal archive of your growth.
Right. Now, for the visualization itself, he emphasizes detail and consistency. The universe responds to all our thoughts, so be clear, be specific, and don't waver in your visualizations. He even suggests setting goals way out in the future, like 30 years out, and visualizing them daily in the present tense.
So you're basically planting seeds that will grow over time without needing to constantly micromanage them.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to have lots of goals. He says the more diverse your goals are, the more you open yourself up to abundance in different areas of your life. He gives examples like wanting lilies in your garden, taking a trip around the world, donating to a specific charity.
Expand your vision beyond just money and create a rich tapestry of desires.
Exactly. And he compares two people, Mary and John. Mary's super focused on becoming a billionaire, while John has lots of different goals, big and small. He suggests that John's broader focus actually helps him create wealth in multiple areas, whereas Mary's narrow focus might create a kind of bottleneck.
It's about having a holistic vision for abundance in all areas of your life.
Right. Now, a really foundational principle Gikandi talks about is the idea of being as the first cause.
This sounds like a cornerstone of his whole philosophy.
It is. He says, being is a state, like being happy. You can't do happiness, you can only be happy. He lays out the creative process as being, thinking, speaking, doing, receiving, experiencing, and he's very clear that being is the first cause.
So our state of being comes first, then our thoughts, then words, then actions, and finally the experiences we attract into our lives.
Yeah, so when you are truly happy, you'll naturally think happy thoughts. Thoughts come from your state of being. And he argues that the conditions we experience in our lives reflect our state of being, not the other way around.
That goes against how a lot of people think. We tend to believe that if we get certain things, then we'll be happy.
Right. But Gikandi's saying that the first step to experiencing true wealth is to cultivate the state of being wealthy within yourself. He talks about the mind as a powerful tool for setting intentions and working with the present moment. But he also says that the problems we face usually reside in the mind itself, not in the present moment.
Exactly. And this leads us to the role of vibration and the power of our feelings.
Okay, how does our overall vibe affect our ability to create what we want?
Gikandi explains that everything in the universe vibrates, and we attract experiences that match our dominant vibration. He even says that consciousness itself is a vibration, and that wealth consciousness is the frequency that attracts financial abundance.
So we need to align our internal vibration with the vibration of what we want to experience.
Right. He says it's so important to pay attention to how you feel, especially when it comes to money. Your emotions tell you what vibration you're currently in, and therefore what you're attracting. He gives this analogy of a radio. You can tune into any experience you want by adjusting your feeling to match the frequency of that experience. And he reminds us that action is important, but it's the last step. It comes after being and thinking.
Exactly. It's not about forcing action if your underlying vibration isn't aligned.
So we need to find that balance, right? It's not just about taking a ton of action.
Right. Gikandi stresses the importance of balancing being, thinking, speaking, and acting. If you only focus on action and you don't do the inner work, you might not see the results you want.
It's a holistic approach.
Yeah. And this ties into the ideas of faith and certainty.
He talks about faith not as a religious thing, but as a core element of creation.
He defines faith as a state of certainty, a way of being, not just something you say. To cultivate faith, you decide to be certain about your desired outcomes, and you don't entertain any contradictory thoughts or doubts.
So it's a deliberate choice to believe.
Exactly. And he says that understanding how the universe works through quantum physics, the nature of time, cause, and effect, helps to build that faith and certainty. When you see the underlying mechanisms, it's easier to believe in the process. He says that what's possible for you is directly proportional to your level of certainty, your faith, and the clarity of your thoughts.
The more we understand the rules of the game, the more confident we can be in our ability to win.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about how our individual wealth consciousness interacts with the collective.
The people around us can definitely influence our beliefs about money.
Definitely. Gikandi says that we're all affected by the collective wealth consciousness of our environment, our families, communities, even our countries. And that's why it's important to help others improve their wealth consciousness.
We rise by lifting others.
Exactly. He says that helping someone else gain something is a powerful way to attract that same thing into your own life. He links this to the idea of building businesses and systems based on mutual benefit. When everyone wins, it creates more peace and prosperity for everyone. On the flip side, when things are based on unfairness or exploitation, it ultimately harms everyone involved.
So a win-win approach is not just ethical, it's actually more practical in the long run.
Right. He even suggests that peace itself contributes to prosperity. He says that even industries that seem to thrive on conflict, like the arms industry, would ultimately benefit from a more peaceful world where resources could be used more productively.
Okay, so let's go back to the fundamental nature of reality. Gikandi introduces this idea that all possibilities exist simultaneously in the now. So the wealthy you and the not wealthy you are both present right now, just in different potential realities.
Yeah, you could say that. He says that we're only conscious of one of those realities at a time. And then he asks, if all possibilities already exist, how can we say that our current circumstances are fixed and unchangeable?
That challenges our whole idea of reality as this solid, unchanging thing.
Right. He argues that the conditions we see around us aren't inherent properties, they're constructions of our consciousness. And that means we can create something totally new.
How do we break free from those old constructions and manifest something completely different?
By consciously letting go of our limiting beliefs and preconceived notions about how things have to be. It's like when you design a new house or a revolutionary car, you got to let go of all the old designs and be open to a fresh inspiration.
We have to clear our mental slate and make space for new possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's a really important distinction he makes between desire and wanting.
This sounds like one of those subtle things that can have a big impact.
It is. He says that when we want something, it implies a sense of lack, and that perpetuates the state of not having. You can't really get what you want as long as you're stuck in the state of wanting.
It's like you're constantly focused on the absence of what you desire, which just reinforces that absence.
Exactly. Think about wanting food. You only truly satisfy that desire when you shift from wanting to getting and then to having. We do this naturally with simple things, but it gets harder with bigger desires that we haven't experienced yet.
So the act of wanting can actually keep us from getting what we want, especially the big things.
Right. So he suggests eliminating the word want from our vocabulary altogether. Instead, use words like desire or wish. They don't have that same sense of lack.
It's a subtle shift from feeling deficient to feeling expectant.
Yeah. And this connects to the idea of purpose. Gikandi distinguishes between our purpose and our goals.
How are those two different?
Your purpose, he says, is your core reason for being. It's your unique contribution to the world. Your goals are the things you want to achieve along the way. When your goals are aligned with your purpose, it gives you direction, it speeds things up, and it makes the whole journey more fulfilling.
So our purpose is like a compass, and our goals are the destinations we navigate towards using that compass.
Exactly. And he guides people to find their purpose by focusing on what brings them joy and passion. Forget about societal expectations or predefined career paths. Maybe your true purpose is studying butterflies. You can start aligning your career with that, even if you're currently doing something completely different.
It's about tapping into that deep inner motivation and letting it guide your life.
Right. Now let's get into some of the more metaphysical stuff. Gikandi talks about the nature of spirit and the illusion of separation.
This is where it gets really deep.
He says that everything starts with the self, with spirit. That's the first cause. He encourages people to ask, who am I? And to look beyond labels like your name, age, or nationality. Those are just temporary jackets you wear in this physical experience.
The roles we play.
Yeah. He uses the analogy of the ocean. It's one vast spirit that manifests as individual waves, each with its own unique form, but all part of the same ocean. And the nature of that spirit, he says, is love and abundance. Then he asks, why would this all-knowing, all-abundant spirit even need to experience life on Earth?
What's the point of this physical experience for the spirit?
He says it's about experiencing things that the spirit can't experience in its pure state of knowing. It's about contrast, going from not knowing to knowing, experiencing love and joy through relationships and interactions. He gives the example of eating your favorite food all the time. Eventually, it wouldn't be special anymore. You wouldn't have the same contrast, the same enjoyment.
So the limitations of the physical world actually enhance the experience for the spirit.
Exactly. And this ties into intuition, the ego, and the possibility of instant manifestation.
So how does our spirit communicate with us?
Gikandi says it communicates mainly through intuition and feelings. The spirit already knows the future possibilities, the best path to get what we desire, but we often experience delays because our ego, our personality with all its fears and limitations, makes choices that aren't aligned with our spirit.
So when our conscious desires are aligned with our spirit, things flow more smoothly.
Yeah. He talks about synchronicity, those moments where you think of something and it shows up right away. It feels like a coincidence, but it's actually a sign that your ego and spirit are in alignment. He says our true desires come from the spirit, which knows the best way to bring them into reality. But things like fear, emotional baggage, and attachment can block that process of instant manifestation.
Okay, so being aware, trust your intuition, letting go of attachment, and being creative are all important for letting our desires manifest more easily.
Exactly. Now, he also emphasizes the importance of oneness and non-judgment.
The idea that we're all connected.
Being one with the source and everything we desire. He says that the illusion of separation exists so we can have a wider range of experiences. And when we judge others, it creates resistance in our own energy field. It slows us down and often attracts judgment back to us. He says to focus on your own path, be clear about what you want, and trust the process for everyone else. See others as different expressions of the one, not better or worse. That creates harmony.
So focus on your own path, accept others, and let the universe handle the rest.
Right, and this is all connected to abundance and gratitude.
Okay, how do those fit in?
Gikandi says that wealth and happiness come from seeing, believing in, and acting from a place of abundance. He recommends meditation as a way to directly experience your inherent abundance. He also says that it's easier to understand these higher concepts through experience rather than just intellectually, and he points out that the same universal laws apply to wealth and happiness. He says to focus on creating happiness for others, act as if you're already happy, and be grateful for everything you have. He reminds us that our external world is a reflection of our internal state.
So when we cultivate that inner sense of abundance and gratitude, we attract more of it into our lives.
Exactly. And all of this comes together in the concept of living in the now.
That's a recurring theme throughout the book.
Because everything happens in the now. Our memories of the past, our dreams of the future, it all happens in the present moment. Resisting the now creates suffering. True joy comes from being present, connected to ourself, unaffected by the ups and downs of life. Use your mind to set intentions and engage with the present, but don't get lost in endless thoughts about the past or the future. The problems we face are in our minds, not in the present moment itself.
The present moment is where our power lies.
Exactly. Now, toward the end of the book, Gikandi gets into some practical financial advice.
Beyond the mindset work, what does he recommend doing with our money?
He advocates for a balanced approach. He recommends tithing 10% of your income, paying your taxes fairly, also around 10%, and investing 10% for long-term growth. This balanced approach benefits both you and the world around you. He also emphasizes the importance of keeping good financial records without being stingy or overly attached to money.
It's about being responsible with your money.
Exactly. And he says to surround yourself with good advisors and pay them well. Wealthy people often have a team of knowledgeable people supporting them.
It's about leveraging the expertise of others.
Right. He also encourages people to figure out what they're truly great at and what they love to do, and then focus on that, delegating everything else. He uses the example of Bill Gates, who was a master delegator.
Focus on your zone of genius.
Exactly. He talks about how throughout history, our desire for a better life has driven changes in thought patterns, and how that rearranged energy leading to advancements in different areas of life. Certainty has always been key. Think about the IT boom. That was a period of massive wealth creation driven by collective desire, belief, and new thinking.
It's amazing how shifts in collective consciousness can have such a tangible impact.
Yeah. And he talks about the power of long-term investing, putting your money to work for you. Even small amounts can grow significantly over time. And he defines assets, things that put money in your pocket, and liabilities, things that take money out. To build wealth, you want to have more assets than liabilities. Use your earned income to acquire assets, and let those assets generate income to cover your liabilities.
Create a system where your money works for you.
Right. Finally, he touches on a few other things. Learning from failure, giving generously, practicing gratitude, and cultivating a loving relationship with money. Embrace the affirmation, money loves me, and I love money.
So it's a holistic approach. Mindset, practical financial strategies, and a deep understanding of universal principles. So as we wrap up this deep dive into a happy pocket full of money, it's clear that creating the reality we want and cultivating wealth consciousness is a multifaceted journey. It involves understanding the power of our being, the energy of our thoughts, our vibrational state, and aligning with universal laws.
Some key takeaways for you, our listener, are to cultivate a state of wealth consciousness. Really feel that abundance within yourself. Set clear, detailed goals in the present tense, and visualize them consistently with emotion. Pay attention to your feelings. They tell you what you're vibrating. Focus on positive, abundant feelings, especially about money.
Find and follow your unique purpose and passions. Let your inner guidance lead you. Desire without feeling a sense of lack. Embrace the power of the present moment. And be grateful for everything you have and everything that's on its way to you. Remember to balance action with inner work, aligning your being, thoughts, and words with your desires.
And consider tithing, responsible financial management, and long-term investing.
Now, here's something to think about as we end. What beliefs about money and reality might you be holding on to that are limiting your potential? And what small shift in your being could create a ripple effect of abundance in your life? Keep exploring these concepts and see how you can apply them to unlock greater fulfillment and wealth in all its forms. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.